everybody. Tonight I'm accompanied by Shane Goff and Christian Lipith, and today we're going to be discussing about youth on course.
So for some context on this new rule change, Youth On Course was available at all Westchester County courses, and it was previously open to anyone under the age of 18, and they were able to play golf for only $5. However, as of the 2025 season, it's only been made available for those under the age of 15. Christian, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is a really big topic, especially as 16-year-olds ourselves. We just got over the threshold, and, it's really hard to grow the game we love and to really experience this game to our fullest when we can't play for the $5 that it used to be. So, Zef, if you would like to set the stage with some questions, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, I'd really like to hear more about this. So what are you guys' thoughts on youth on course overall?
Yeah, so providing my thoughts and how it's impacted us, as Christian said, we just turned 16. I think it's just the fact that we just started to enjoy the game of golf. We just got into it in the last year or two. So, we're really the ones experiencing the rule change in its fullest. As, who doesn't want to get out there on a weekday, $5, play some golf, have a good time. But, to go from $5 to $70, this is huge. $70 is not just an easy weekday spend.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. Money doesn't grow on trees. Kids, this may be their whole blown paycheck if they even have a job. It's really hard because I used to play over the summer a lot. For $5, I would play every day. But now it's like you can only experience it once a week, and it's hard to really have fun in this game.
Mm-hmm. So, what was like? Why do you guys want it back? Why do you guys want the old rule back?
Yeah, so as Christian said, over the summertime, school's out, right? It's Monday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You're playing some Xbox with the boys. You shoot the text like, "Hey, let's play some golf." $5. You get out there, soak in some sun, hit some balls, have a great time. And I think that's just what golf is supposed to be, and it's kind of been taken away from us with this rule change.
I mean, that's a perfect way to say it. Summertime, freshly out of school, there's no better time. You could just play every day for a small price, and it really helps grow the game, and it helps build a passion that these people could have at a higher level. And, golf is a game they say you could play your whole life, but with this limit, it may not grow as far because of the spending and the amount of money it would cost for a young 15-year-old kid who maybe doesn't have this money to have this opportunity.
And on this topic of growing the game, I just found the statistic. I think it was with Youth On Course in the last 3 years before the rule change, the game was growing about 19% each year in members for Youth On Course, And to get a game where, now we're involving the youth, even though it's been previously open to just really older men or middle-aged men. But now you're getting kids involved. You're getting, more people out there having a good time. And I think what more could you ask for? I think that's an ideal situation there. Yet here they are making a rule change.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's totally reasonable. What do you guys think are some possible solutions to this?
Great question. $5, it is a little low. I'll be fair. They do have to make profits. Golf courses are not cheap to maintain. But how about, a $10 round or $15 round? I think, that still doesn't hurt the pockets. You might go from playing 2 times a week instead to, 1 day a week, even if it goes from some kids like us every day to 3 to 4 days a week, it still doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I have many solutions for this, and that was a very prominent one. Maybe $10, $15. It's still a low price where these people could play multiple times during the week, but you still profit off this course. Another way is you can limit the amount of golf carts given to this age. I know you have to have your driver's license to get a cart, but the damages on the course could be from a cart, and this is a very big reason onto why Youth on Course has increased. And
yes, so
go on.
So sorry, but just to give the viewers some context, the reason why Youth On Course has been changed is, there's a lot of kids, that may not be treating the course with the same respect as everyone should be. And there's a lot of kids playing, which, like I said, is a good thing. But we got to make sure this quality of play is up to standard. So going off that path, why not make the kids take a rules course? Whether it's an hour online test to ensure that, everyone holds the course to the same level. This keeps the pace of play together, which is a big problem for a lot of the people on the course, as well as keeping the course in the way that the maintenance people want it. They work so hard, they get up early in the morning. So it really is just disrespectful if some of the kids are not treating the course in the same manner. So why not just solve that solution flat out and make sure every kid's aware of how it should be treated.
Exactly, well said. The old people, they don't love to have the young kids playing on the course. But if we establish a merit system and a way that these kids could be aware of the violence and the dangers that they could cause to the course by unprofessional behavior, that would be a huge change.
I don't know what else to say.
I'll take us in another direction. Maybe about what are some of the connections and what are some of our experiences with golf on a more personal level? Christian, you want to start us?
Well, I mean, generally the basis is just like connecting with my friends. It's a great opportunity to hang out with people. It's a great opportunity to play. Have some fun, relax on a nice summer day, even a fall day. It's just the perfect bonding. And like I said before, you could play it throughout your whole life. My grandpa, 86, 87 years old, he still plays the game almost every single week at a top level. And it's just really important because that's something I would like to do when I'm older, and I would love to experience at this level like he does.
And I think a point that could be made not with just your grandpa, but in general, is meeting new people, making better connections. Personally, it's not just about playing with friends, but playing with new people. I met this kid, Kean Murphy, great golfer, matter of fact. You'll always see him around Mohan's golf course just down the road. But, I see him on the golf course, we all have a conversation. And what do you know? I made a new friend who also likes the sport I play. And we can affordably go out and have a good time together and make connections. And then with even like with people the age of a grandpa, you know, he can help teach the game that he's played his whole life. Provides a meaningful connection. He gives some tips. Even teaching some of the rules of the game. So I think all across the board, it's not just about playing with your friends, but meeting new people and having new experiences.
I think the same goes for every public course because I saw that it took a while for all the other courses to change for this same rule. So, like all the security and all the lessons that should be taught to the kids, that should be worldwide, not just a youth on course thing. It should really be taught to all these kids because it's just a better way to grow the game. It's a better way to protect and keep the passion because if the old people are annoyed by these kids, they're not going to want to play anymore. So that's also going to hurt the game. But then if the young kids are aware of this knowledge and are learning of the proper ways to protect the environment and protect the course that, like you said before, these people work so hard on. It's really hard to maintain a golf course. And imagine you built a house just for it to get knocked down by a little kid the next day. It hurts. It really is pain, and it's just unfortunate, honestly.
Yeah, so that's why we're encouraging these kids to take responsibility, take initiative, learn the rules in the game. But on the other end, here our host Zef Ivezic, he's a very new golfer. This is his first season playing. He's wanting to get into the sport, but now he's thinking about $70 to play a round of golf. He's still a new golfer. He doesn't know if he loves it yet. Well, he enjoys it, but he hasn't been out on the course yet. So it puts him in a tough spot. Like, Zef, let's hear your thoughts on it. You've been asking a lot of questions. Let's hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love the whole idea of youth on course, but and I was willing to, go every day and pay all the money. But once I saw the ban, it didn't allow me to pay such a short amount and such a small amount of money to go golfing simply on the course. And now I see I have to pay like upwards of $40. I think it's a pretty hefty amount of money. It's running my pockets dry, to be honest.
And I think it's fair to say that when we first took you to the golf range, you really did enjoy the sport. So I think the fact that this youth on course rule change is not allowing you to do something you love or you want to experience. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely going to cut down the amount of times I go golfing now since how expensive it is.
Some other things I would like to point out is, like I said before, money doesn't grow on trees. Kids our age especially, saving up for a car, saving up for college especially, it's hard to keep this passion while you got to save up for many important other things in life, like gas money, groceries, even car insurance, all that stuff.
And nonetheless, we're students. We're full-time students. That should be the priority for a lot of kids. We want to do well in school, do things outside of school to whether it's boosting our application or even to have a good time. So now you want to go play golf, but the fact is you might have to be working 6 hours just to afford one round of golf. How do we balance this while still funding things like going out to eat with friends or even affording a gym membership? There's a lot of expenses. So now when we're putting in $70 for golf, I think
Yeah, that's
it's just
perfect. We need
awful,
that
honestly.
balance of that schoolwork and that fun activities. But where does work fit in there when we need to afford to pay for these fun activities at a high amounts when before it would just be very accessible and we could focus more on our schoolwork and more on our further processes in life.
Excellent point.
So, is there any other questions left that we have to
You know,
discuss?
I'd like to bring up this point I saw, because it's not only the youth community that struggles with this funding. It's the fact that I saw the statistic online. I even included in this paper. 88% of golfers, this includes adults, this includes all ages, think golf is too expensive. So let's put it like this: if people working a full time job think golf is too expensive, how is this affecting kids that most kids don't even have a job? Let's be fair, and then they're working limited hours with school. How are they affording it then? Simply,
They can. That's the thing. That's why. Even my little brother could say golf is too expensive. It's painful to see how, you know, I know some country clubs could reach under up to like 120, $150,000 even. But this is a public course. This is our local course. I think we should be able to access it as it's not as prestigious. We should be able to access it at a cheaper price and at a cheaper level than these other courses.
yeah, and don't even get me started on some of the other things around golf. It's already expensive enough to be paying for golf clubs, golf shoes, golf clothes, and now we're throwing in another golf round. So now you're paying, let's say, thousands of dollars just to get out there on the course and have the gear you need. And now you're throwing in $100, let's say, every time you want to go out and play. It's just awful.
Yeah. The other day at Dick's Sporting Goods, I actually saw boxes of balls, 12 balls for $60. That's $5 a ball. That's a whole round of golf right there. Especially if you're an amateur and you lose balls often, that's $60 right down the drain. That's $5 a ball. You can lose maybe 8 balls a round. That's what, 40 bucks right there.
8 balls, man.
Plus,
You must have never seen this kid Zef Ivezic swing a golf club. Because let me tell you, with his swing, when he's a golf course, he might be running through $200 in golf balls.
exactly. Plus, you gotta pay for those balls, plus the $70 on top of the round. Maybe if it was $5, but it's getting out of hand, folks.
The wallet's got cobwebs.
The wallet does have cobwebs, that's for sure.
And it just really is such a big problem. So that's why we're on here trying to create change. So I think this is a good opportunity to talk about what we're going to do, because right now we're here advocating for it. But we have to do more than just talk about it between us three. So
Yeah, if you like
what's
me
the
to
next
start,
steps?
I fully believe that since we wrote already papers on this, we could transition these papers into letters to the head of the department of the youth on course, or the head of Parks and Co, or whatever of the golf, whoever runs the public golf courses. I think this would be a great idea to spread awareness and to spread this idea that really we need to change this, bring it back to normal, bring back the love of golf.
I mean, I totally agree, and I think it's the problem isn't that we can't accumulate enough support. As three of us willingly got on here without just to go talk about this issue, and even in Yorktown High School alone, I could probably name 100 people that are very upset with this issue. So then we're talking about all of Westchester specifically. We're trying to cause change. It's simple. Like we can do that if we
It's
just get enough
disgusting,
people.
honestly.
We start emailing people. And I think some people locally would also like to help see change in the community, whether this is our local officials, our local head pros. They're all for growing the game.
I think if you ask any amateur golfer around our age, even some older people, they'll say that they would sign this petition. They would say that they would bring back the old youth on course. Why? because everyone loves the game of golf and everyone loves to play. So I think that's a very, you know, I think that's a very easy, accessible thing. It's not about the signatures, it's about getting it to the top people and making sure that they see all the awareness and everybody that wishes for this to go back to normal.
And that petition, you just brought it up. I think it's a great idea, honestly. Zeph, you've never even been on the golf course. I'm sure you'd be happy to sign it. I'm sure you'd be happy to spread it to other family members. And that's just the truth. So I think this is an issue that we can definitely work towards. And it's only been in the change for 4 months? So
Even less,
there's definitely time to get this change back. The summer's approaching. Whether we can work, even if we just work something out with one course, like Mohansic Golf Course, I know the head pro over there, he's a great guy.
Of course.
It starts the domino effect,
Yep. Yeah. Well, I think we've spread our message. If you guys would like to say any last messages to the pod.
Yeah, so we've covered a lot of things, but I think the main thing we should circle back to is it's clearly an issue, but it can't stay an issue. There's things that have to be done, and I encourage all of our listeners to whether help garnish support or help cause change. And most of all, I'd like to thank our host Zef for coming out here today. Short notice, but he did a fantastic job. So
took out his own time of his day to come help support this issue and help us on this podcast. So I thank you all for listening, and we hope that you spread awareness to change the youth on course, and we hope that you take this podcast to heart and you really help us. Thank you.
Also, share if you'd like to see some more.
Yeah. Peace.